It's the first week of December. Time to clean those moldy piles of former pumpkin off your porch. The Christmas lights are flickering to life, and horror fans are sneaking just one more spooky watch in between all the cozy comfort movies. This is the strange, shivery overlap where backpackers disappear in the tropics, campus scavenger hunts turn deadly, and even the classic Universal monsters come shambling back for one last bow. So let's see if you can survive this on top of your relative's fruitcake. So put on your scissor hands and let's go. You're listening to This Week in Horror History for December 1st through 7th. I'm your host, Enrique Couto, and I'll help you flip open the horror calendar to see which movies, monsters, and macabre milestones crawled out during this exact week in years past, as we begin the true start of spooky season's winter phase. We'll head to Brazil for an organ harvesting vacation from hell, drop in on the last serious Universal monster mashup, and find Native American spirits looking to slaughter anyone in their way. Then we'll dig into a deep-cut campus slasher that limped through drive-ins before being resurrected on Blu-ray, roll through some key horror birthdays, and finish with a December-ready recommendation you can stream tonight. First up, December 1st, 2006, Turistas hits theaters and immediately makes every backpacker rethink those off-the-beaten-path travel plans. Directed by John Stockwell, Turistas follows a group of young travelers in Brazil whose dream vacation turns into a nightmare when a bus crash strands them in the middle of nowhere. Locals offer hospitality, but it quickly curdles into something much nastier, an underground organ harvesting operation that feels like a sun-soaked cousin to the Hostel-era torture boom. Shot entirely in Brazil and released under the title Paradise Lost, in the United Kingdom, Turistas was the very first film put out by Fox Atomic, a sub-label of 20th Century Fox that was intended to specialize in comedy and genre films. Most notably The Hills Have Eyes 2, 28 Weeks Later, The Comebacks, The Rocker, Miss March, and 12 Rounds. But unfortunately, if you recognized any of the films in that list, then you know they were all kind of cult hits and didn't do big box office, which is why shortly thereafter Fox Atomic closed in 2009. However, Turistas started strong with around $14.7 million worldwide on a $10 million budget, so not a complete disaster, but definitely not the breakout the studio needed. These days, it plays more like a time capsule of the mid-2000s, when horror was very grimy and mean and often obsessed with the idea that every foreign bus ride is one unlucky turn away from doom. A fun and shocking film that I personally need to revisit, and if you too want to revisit it, you can rent it at any of the usual suspects like Apple TV, Amazon Prime, or Fandango at home. Jump back with me to December 2nd, 1983, and things get even rougher in the desert with Fred Olen Ray's micro-budget nightmare, Scalps. Fred Olen Ray, by the way, one of my biggest cinematic heroes, and a guy I even got to work with. He was the executive producer on the show Boggy Creek the Series, which I directed all 6 episodes of Season 1 for, which is available right now on Tubi TV. You should check it out. It won't cost you anything. But Scalps is a wild ride and one of Fred Olen Ray's first breakout films, which began arguably one of the most prolific careers in all of B-movie cinema, if that's what you want to call it. Fred's directed over 100 films in every genre imaginable, from westerns, comedies, family movies, Lifetime movie dramas, Christmas movies, you name it. Fred Olen Ray has yelled action at it. But this one is extra special and extra nasty. It's about archaeology students who ignore every sensible warning and dig on sacred native land, unleashing a vengeful spirit that tears through the group in a haze of possession, animal attacks, and gritty, low-budget gore. Shot on 16mm film with a very low budget, Scalps is the kind of video store relic that lived or died on its lurid VHS cover and word of mouth alone. In theaters, it slipped into limited release in December of '83 and never came close to what might be called mainstream success, but on home video and now streaming, it's become a cult curio, messy, offensive, but fascinating for fans of regional and DIY horror. And if you want to learn more about Fred Olen Ray and his career, he put out a phenomenal memoir called Hellbent for Hollywood. You can grab on Amazon or wherever you buy your books. It's an excellent read if you love learning about making movies. And right now, you can stream Scalps on Amazon Prime Video with your membership, or grab yourself a collector's edition Blu-ray chock full of extras, if that's what you're into. Now let's fast forward, or rewind depending on which reel you're holding, to December 7th, 1945, when Universal releases House of Dracula and effectively closes the book on their classic monster cycle. This one is a full-on monster summit. You've got Dracula, you've got the Wolfman and Frankenstein's monster all converging on a tormented doctor who's trying to cure them all. Of course, the cures go horribly wrong, and what you end up with is a fever dream mashup of capes, neck bolts, and tortured mad scientist melodrama. It didn't make the same cultural splash as earlier Universal horrors, but financially it held its own as part of the studio's steady monster business, and historians often point to it as the final serious entry in that original Frankenstein saga before things went full parody. Abbott and Costello, I'm looking your direction. It's a fascinating snapshot of a studio squeezing the last drop from its most famous of creatures. If you've never seen House of Dracula, I do recommend it. I mean, I'm a nerd for everything, but when it comes to Universal monster movies, there are just some Sunday afternoons when all I crave, other than maybe a bowl of chicken noodle soup, is Dracula, Frankenstein, the Wolfman, the Creature from the Black Lagoon in black and white in all their classic glory. And this film really does scratch that itch. I feel like I don't revisit it enough, honestly. If you've never seen it, House of Dracula is currently streaming on IndieFlix with a subscription, or you can rent it or buy it on services like Amazon, Apple TV, and Fandango at home. This Week in Horror History is brought to you in part by Savorista.com. Savorista is the coffee brand that brings you bold, intense flavors and gourmet taste, but with an R.L. Stein twist that they're all decaf and half-calf. I'm a little sensitive to caffeine myself, so this is a big win. If that appeals to you as well, you can head to Savorista.com, pick out your favorite light, medium, or dark roast, and use promo code SPOOKY at checkout to get 25% off your first order. And every purchase supports our program directly. Thanks to all the Spookies who've already tried Savorista for themselves, and thank you to Savorista for supporting the program. All right. We've hit organ thieves, cursed deserts, classic monsters, and we'll get to a certain lonely boy with scissors for hands in a bit. But our deep cut this week puts us back on campus, where a bear mascot and a pile of steak knives turn school spirit into a body count. And we're back. So let's talk college radio, scavenger hunts, and a killer who turns the school's mascot into a slasher icon. Our deep cut spotlight for December 1st through 7th is Girls' Night Out from 1982, also known as The Scare Maker, a scrappy early 80s slasher that puts a twisted spin on college campus horror. The film opens with the suicide of Dickie Kavanaugh, a disturbed former patient at a sanitarium. Cut to nearby DeWitt University, where the basketball team's big win kicks off a night of celebratory chaos. Of course, the school's chipper campus radio DJ hosts an all-night scavenger hunt, sending students racing around the grounds in the middle of the night. While everyone's chasing clues, a killer in the school's bear mascot costume prowls the shadows, having strapped steak knives to the costume's paws, so every bear hug can be one to dismember. Tonally, it's pure golden age slasher energy. Late-night cafeterias, locker rooms, and dorm hallways full of horny, bickering students, punctuated by surprisingly nasty kills. The killer taunts victims over the phone, stalks them through the darkness, and leaves a trail of bodies that the authorities are a step too slow to connect. Of course, in these movies, cops are never really that plugged in. Yeah, not so much. Release-wise, Girls' Night Out is exactly the kind of oddball film that, well, this show exists to resurrect. It first slipped into theaters in the southern United States on December 3rd, 1982 under its original title, the aforementioned Scare Maker, via a small regional test run that barely moved the box office needle. The film later resurfaced nationwide on home video in the mid-80s under the title Girls' Night Out. That's Night, N-I-T-E, where its lurid cover and killer bear hook finally found an audience among VHS renters. They were voracious, and they needed content. For decades, it lived in that half-remembered zone of bootlegs and fuzzy TV airings. I remember seeing a ton of copies in horror movie conventions in the early 2000s. It seemed like it was one of those lost films, but not necessarily very many people were really looking for it, I guess. But then, thank goodness, boutique labels stepped in. Media Blasters gave it a DVD release in the 2000s, but it wasn't until Arrow Video did a new restoration and Blu-ray that the film got a proper cult movie upgrade, complete with commentaries and other extras. Now what was once just another forgotten slasher has become a minor collector favorite, especially for fans of campus horror and regional independent filmmaking. If the idea of a knife-clawed bear mascot stalking sororities during a scavenger hunt sounds like your kind of film, and why the hell wouldn't it be? Girls' Night Out is absolutely worth your time. In the United States, you can stream it on the Arrow player, which is Arrow Films' streaming service with a membership or subscription. Rent or buy it digitally on services like Amazon, Apple, or grab Arrow's phenomenal cleaned-up Blu-ray, full of so many extras, I don't know if you can bear it. All right, spookies, let's light some metaphorical birthday candles, safely and far from any flammable film stock. December 1st, 1941, Sean S. Cunningham is born, the producer-director who unleashed Friday the 13th on summer camp counselors everywhere and helped to define the slasher boom. Who'd have thought that one conversation with a writer saying you want to rip off Halloween could turn into a lifetime of scares for the entire world? Gotta love it. Happy birthday, Sean. December 3rd, 1971, Keegan Connor Tracy is born. She'd go on to appear in Final Destination 2 and White Noise, becoming a familiar face in early 2000s supernatural horror. And she was also in one of my favorite episodes of Creepshow, the series on Shudder. It was the episode To Grandmother's House We Go. December 3rd, 1982, director Adam Wingard enters the world. Years later, he'd give us a ton of films I'm a very big fan of. Just a few to note would be You're Next, The Guest, and Big Monster Smackdown, Godzilla vs. Kong, and Godzilla X Kong The New Empire as well. He also directed A Horrible Way to Die, Homesick, Blair Witch, the sequel to Blair Witch that I almost forgot about, but I actually really like that one, so no hate there. I hope it's a great one, Adam. Can't wait to see what you come up with next. December 4th, 1954, Tony Todd is born. Unfortunately, we lost Tony this year, but he was an incredible guy. The man whose voice alone could haunt your bathroom mirror. From Candyman to Final Destination, he is undoubtedly horror royalty and deeply missed. So raise a glass of, I hope that's blood red holiday punch and not, never mind, to all of them this week. For our then and now, let's take a look at December horror and how it keeps evolving while hitting some surprisingly similar nerves. On December 1st, 2006, we mentioned Turista, which tapped into fears about globalization, medical exploitation, and the ugly side of exotic tourism. Ordinary travelers become human resources in the worst possible way, as if normal human resources aren't bad enough, sliced up so the rich can live just a little longer. Jump ahead to December 7th, 2022, when Megan premieres in Los Angeles. Suddenly, the fear isn't crooked doctors in the jungle. It's a smiling, hyper-connected robot babysitter who knows your kid's secrets better than you do. Made for about $12 million and grossing over $180 million worldwide, Megan proved that audiences are still hungry for horror that mixes social anxiety with a dark sense of humor, especially when it involves technology stepping into intimate roles it might not be ready for. Both films in their own way are about trust, who we hand our bodies and our loved ones over to when we're tired, overwhelmed, or chasing comfort. Whether it's a surgeon with a scalpel or an AI doll with Wi-Fi, horror keeps reminding us that convenience can have teeth. And by the way, if you missed out on the second Megan movie, I know a lot of people didn't seem to love it so much, but I really enjoyed it. It was like the Terminator 2 of the series. You should really check that one out. It's streaming on Peacock and all the usual suspects if you want to rent or buy it online. For this week's recommendation, I'm steering you straight into a snowy, suburban fairy tale and perhaps the most mainstream recommendation so far on the show, a film I've appreciated since I was a young man, Edward Scissorhands, which began its limited theatrical release on December 7th, 1990, and went full-scale America on December 14th. If by some strange turn of events you haven't seen it, this is the story of an unfinished artificial man taken in by a pastel neighborhood that wants to tame and trophy him at the same time. It's melancholy and strange with enough gothic edge to scratch the horror itch, especially when the mob mentality kicks in, but soft and emotional enough to pass as a family holiday staple. Let's call it gateway horror. I like that term. On a $20 million budget, Edward Scissorhands carved out about $86 million worldwide and has only grown more beloved over the decades. It really is a perfect entry point if you're trying to drag non-horror friends into something a little darker for December without immediately jumping to killer Santas or evil Nazi elves. Yeah, if you know, you know. In the US, you can stream it on Disney+, Hulu, and Max, or rent and buy it just about anywhere. Throw it on during a cold night. Dim the lights and let the snow machines and Danny Elfman's score do the rest. That's going to do it for this week's tour through December 1st to 7th in horror history. If you enjoyed this trip, make sure you're subscribed, because here at Weekly Spooky, there's almost always something to enjoy. In fact, tomorrow, we start the season with our first of many scary Christmas stories as we release Charles Campbell's The Weather Outside is Frightful, and believe you me, it lives up to the title. Then on Thursday, we'll have a story by Morgan Moore, also Christmas themed, and on Friday, a brand new Strickfield Christmas novella called The Christmas Carnival. You won't want to miss it, so be subscribed. And don't be afraid, or be afraid. You know what? It's a free country. You're also welcome to email us at weeklyspooky@gmail.com. We love to hear from you. But now it's time for me to get back to it. I'm Enrique Couto, and you've been listening to This Week in Horror History. Until next time, keep warm, keep watching, and remember, just because it's the holiday season doesn't mean the monsters take time off, too.